interesting against LeBron and the Lakers. With Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic both out due to injury, Butler had a 40-point triple-double in Miami's 115-104 win. LeBron and Anthony Davis only combined for 40 points. Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard joining us this morning. Chris, it is so good to have you. Here's the thing. Earlier on the show, Skip said this was the biggest upset in NBA Finals history. Do you agree?
Wow. Well, first of all, let me be honest. I generally don't think of individual games in the finals, you know, in terms of biggest upsets, because ultimately, if you don't win the series, it really doesn't matter. I will say this, if the Heat were to win this series, I do think this would be the biggest upset in finals history. But as far as individual games, I cannot give this to the Heat for a few reasons. Number one, the Lakers, this, as great as Jimmy Butler was and the rest of his players, this was more about the Lakers just laying down, just being complacent, overconfident, you know, not executing. They shot more than half of their field goal attempts were three-pointers. I believe that's the first time in history that's ever been the case in a Lakers game. So they weren't playing their game. They got away from themselves, and that's a big part of why the Heat won, because the Lakers took them lightly. Secondly, the Heat didn't have to deal with any type of adversity as far as being on the road and a raucous crowd that's against you. They didn't have to deal with any of that. So I look at two series in particular where I would say individual games were bigger upsets than what we saw last night. I'll go to the 04 Pistons when they upset the Shaq, Kobe, Karl Malone, Gary Payton Lakers. Now, we know that series was a huge upset. They won in 5. But I would say the Pistons winning game 3 and 4 were bigger than last night, because they had the Lakers' full attention. Like, they win game 1, the Lakers, okay, everybody was telling them they were going to smack Detroit around, so they take them lightly, they lose. They come back and win game 2. But games 3 and 4, the Lakers were on alert, and the Pistons still beat them. Then I would go to the 2001 Philadelphia 76ers over the Lakers again, Shaq, Kobe. Game 1. Now, remember, the Lakers had run through the West. They had swept through the West. Portland, led by Rasheed Wallace. Sacramento, led by Chris Webber at the height of his powers. San Antonio, led by Tim Duncan and David Robinson. The Lakers swept them. They get to the finals. Here come the little Philadelphia 76ers, led by Allen Iverson in the Staples Center. Iverson puts 48 on them, and they win game 1. So that would, to me, those three would have been bigger than what we saw last night. I would say last night was more like 1999, when the New York Knicks, the 8th-seeded Knicks, without Patrick Ewing, they got Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, Marcus Camby. They win game 3 against the Spurs. The Spurs had won the first 2 games. They weren't worried about the Knicks. They lost game 3, and they win 4 and 5 and ended in 5 games. I thought that's what this was like last night.
Go ahead. You want to go? Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Chris, got big issues with everything you just said. I want to put this in perspective for everyone out there. In game 1 of this series, the Miami Heat lost their leading scorer in the playoffs, Goran Dragic, and they lost Bam, who is their heart and soul player, and he had led them through the playoffs in rebounds and assists and blocking shots. Well, that's so much that you lost from the top of your team that you're left with the Jimmy Butler, who's not a prolific scorer. In the closeout game against Indiana, he scored 6. Along the trail against Milwaukee and then Boston, he had a 13-point game and a 14-point game. He is happy to score little because he's got little to no ego. So for him to have the greatest 40-point triple-double in the history of the finals, even greater than LeBron's back in 2015 Game 5, when they lost badly. They lost by 14 to Golden State. Or Jerry West, if you want to go all the way back to 1969, the closeout game, it went overtime, and they did lose it by 2. So they were both in defeat. But in this case, this was Jimmy Butler against the Lakers. This was Jimmy Butler against the two best players by far on the floor in AD and LeBron. This was Jimmy Butler going head-to-head with LeBron and guarding him much of the game and outplaying him head-to-head, outwilling him, out-trash-talking him, and in the end, outlasting him, because I think Jimmy, obviously LeBron's at age 35, ending year 17, Jimmy is able to play at a higher level longer in these games, going into the 45-minute range, than LeBron is at his advanced age. So given all that, given the fact that nobody gave them a shot last night, I give you the 2001 game because the odds makers said that was a 12-point game. This was a 9-point game last night. But when you're betting against Allen Iverson and Dikembe Mutombo, both in the Hall of Fame, and to your point, Iverson goes off with 48 and 5 steals, and Mutombo has 13, 16 rebounds and 5 blocks. Your Hall of Fame. Last night, it was just Jimmy Butler against the world, and he didn't get much help from his starting lineup because they weren't very good last night. If you look at what did the Heat do? Jay Crowder in the starting lineup was 2 for 8. Duncan Robinson was 3 of 10 from 3.
Hero was all right.
Yeah, and he shot
Hero was
6.
great late.
Okay, but he was 6 of 18 total, so he had a long stretch where he was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So they are starting Tyler Hero at age 20, the youngest player ever to start in a finals game. I'm sorry, that's the greatest upset single game ever under the circumstance when they should have been demoralized. They should have been down and out because they had lost their 2 best players so far in the playoffs.
But, Skip, when I look at it, look, in a vacuum, no question about it, Bam is better than Olynyk. But Bam plays right into the Lakers' hands because it allows them to play their big lineup. It allows them to play AD at the 4, plays Dwight Howard at the 5, get another big. LeBron is a point guard, but another big. Well, when you bring Olynyk in, now all of a sudden, Dwight Howard has to play above the three-point line. So his ability to block shots, his ability to rebound, to challenge shots is negated because he has to honor Kelly Olynyk. He has to honor Myers Leonard. They don't have to worry about that with Bam because Bam isn't shooting threes. So in a vacuum, absolutely Bam is better than both players, but he plays directly into their hands. Skip, you told me from that stretch, from 2000 to like 03, Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant force we had ever seen. If you look at his finals numbers, he's 38 and 16. And Allen Iverson, a 5'11 guy, come in and beat him and Kobe? And
Wait, Dikembe's 7'2"?
Yeah, but Shaq.
5 blocks?
And Kobe.
16 rebounds?
And Kobe. And I agree with you. I went with the Bad Boy Pistons, too. You do realize, even though the Pistons won game 2, it took Kobe hitting a 3 to send the game in overtime for them to win game 2. So I also agree with you, Chris. I'm not a guy that looks at a game within the game because this is a series. If you don't win the series, who cares about game 1? Yeah, it's a great story, and you can have, you know, if a guy goes to the Hall of Fame, you can play this as a great backdrop.